Video games are, and always have been, a world of illusion. Sometimes if players stray too far off a path or clip through a level, just like a film set, they'll see the inner workings or, well, nothing. And then sometimes a brutal enemy just falls over and dies, like as if they weren't trying, and they seriously couldn't hit a thing. We just never know what to expect, and don't notice the tricks going on behind the code. That being said, I'm Ben Roy from WhatCulture.com, and this is 10 video game tricks that will blow your mind.
Number 10. Hidden train level loads. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves.
Uncharted 2 literally starts with Nathan Drake stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, it's the name of the opening chapter after all. But how did it all end up like this? The answer? Drake was subjected to repeating parts of an environment between cutscenes. And just like there is no spoon, there was no train. But let's dive into it. To account for the player taking their sweet time, or never really moving at all, the developers at Naughty Dog had to make sure the train never ran out of track. And when the player finally gets Drake through certain sections, be it once his view is obscured or they go through a tunnel, the switcheroo takes place. This is all pretty much seamless and the player never even notices and keeps the pulse-pounding action going. Number 9. Bosses are timed to music. Dark Souls 3. By the time the third installment of the Dark Souls series came out, players all around the world have gotten used to dying, over and over again. Whether that be thanks to a well-placed ledge or a random enemy waiting to get the drop on you, seriously, they wait right around the corner. Cheeky buggers. Though for the most part when it comes to pain in these games, FromSoft likes to deal this out in the form of a boss. Big or small, fast or slow, the bosses in these games are nothing to be taken lightly. Even some of the more gimmicky ones can send the most skilled players back to a bonfire. So with Dark Souls 3, the developers threw in a little trick that, if noticed, will help ease players through. Each boss is timed to the music that accompanies them, which almost subliminally helps the player through. If the music starts to swell, they know something really big is about to go down. And then just as one last middle finger to the players, the dancer doesn't follow this at all, and will inevitably ruin your day. Number 8. The game doesn't load what you don't see. Horizon Zero Dawn. Once only known as the Killzone people, Guerrilla Games shocked everyone with this game. The greys and the browns of days old were gone, switched out for greens, reds and all the other colours of the rainbow. But not only that, first person was ditched for third person, taking Horizon Zero Dawn in a totally different direction. But with new directions comes new challenges. Having an open world game with next to no load times was not only taxing on the current hardware of the time, but was also a new feat for Guerrilla to overcome, whilst Horizon has sprawling landscapes capped off with beautiful vistas. So how did the developers at Guerrilla get all this working on the PS4? Well, simple. They just didn't render what you couldn't see. So if players were somehow able to unlock the camera from Aloy and turn it around, they would see a whole load of nothing. A neat trick pulled off by the devs, but thanks to recent footage hitting the internet a few years ago, we all finally got to see this in action. Number 7. Low health lasts longer. Doom 2016 and Assassin's Creed. At the end of the day, video games are a hobby and a pastime for millions worldwide. From matching fruit to finding treasure, they'll fill a void or scratch an itch for anyone out there. In terms of Assassin's Creed though, that series lets the players live out their stealth fantasy. Whilst in the case of Doom 2016, well, they let you be Doom Guy. But what do these games share in common? Why do they share the same spot on this list? Both games take the player's health and, well, give them a little boost. Because sometimes even the most badass ripping and tearing Doom Guy needs a helping hand. So, sorry to burst your bubble. If you've ever held on by the skin of your teeth or had that small little health bar left, it's probably the developers giving you just a little help there. Number 6. Graphic swap. GoldenEye and Halo Combat Evolved. Now, this one isn't secret and doesn't necessarily have any real impact on the gameplay either. It's just a very cool trick. Until the recent wave of Resident Evil remakes that seemingly resurrected these horror classics for a modern age, Microsoft once led the charge in this department with the Halo series. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary hit the shelves back in 2011 and was such a mind-blowing feat at the time. Being able to switch between old and new graphics was the selling point. Now the older game looked like the players remembered and was all nice and shiny for a new generation. Though thanks to recent leaks, we now know this mind-blowing trick almost graced Xbox Live Arcade 4 years earlier. It turns out that the legendary first-person shooter developed by Rare was meant to get this back in 2007. Yes, that's right, we almost got GoldenEye and XBLA, years before the questionable Activision games. Though because the rights are a mess, and Nintendo does what Nintendo wants, this just never came to light. But just looking at it now, this GoldenEye remaster would hang today, so we can only pray that it'll get an official release one day. Number 5. AI Director. Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Valve still, unfortunately, can't count to 3, and it's been over a decade now since we've last had a Left 4 Dead release. Sure, the community have kept the game alive with endless mods, skin updates, and entire maps. Though if we all take a step back and look, there's one real reason why we all love this co-op zombie shooter. Sure, shooting zombies is fun, of course, it's science after all, but the reason Left 4 Dead is so much more fun is because the AI director. This sinister being is the author of all your pain. Stray too far from the group? Well, the director's gonna single you out. Doing too well or carrying the others? The director's gonna mark you for a hit. Think of it as the undead mob boss of video games, and in this case, if players get too cocky, they'll be sleeping with the corpses. Number 4. Two Brains, Alien Isolation. In the scariest game of hide and seek, doesn't it always feel strange how the xenomorph knows where the player is? Sometimes it seems impossible, right? This is because the titular alien in question has two brains. Theoretically, the two are in constant battle with one another. One knows where the player is hiding at all times, whilst the other is none the wiser. With both fighting for control, it does feel like a real toss-up for which one wins. But this is what makes the terror of Alien Isolation so unique and natural. Cutting out this feature just wouldn't make it the same game, and if anything would make the xenomorph more brain dead than the ones in Alien's Colonial Marines. Yes, that dumpster fire of a game. Number 3. 4 enemies at once, Gears of War. Along with Resident Evil 4, the original Gears of War helped shift the tide for third-person gaming. Back in 2006, Gears cost Microsoft an insane $10 million to develop, and another $1 billion on top of that just to double the RAM in each console. This choice ultimately solidified the 360's dominance for the entire generation, because without it, that machine would not have lasted as long. Still pushing the 360 to its limits in the early days, developers Epic had to limit the amount of enemies on screen, down to a measly 4. Yes, that's right, 4. So all those epic firefights that you had in the original Gears of War were just you against 4 other locusts. But thanks to the pacing and structure, it was never really an issue. Going back now does feel sort of underwhelming, but at least the cover-based shooting still holds up. Number 2. The player doesn't move, the world does. The Walking Dead. Telltale's The Walking Dead series is one we'll always remember. Not only did it single-handedly launch the company into the stratosphere, seemingly eroding away any barriers they once had up in front of them, it opened up a whole new generation to the adventure game. Though whilst at the same time being built on an old Rocky engine. Getting out new episodes in a timely fashion was a challenge for Telltale. So with The Walking Dead, a handy trick was implemented to fix character movement. And that trick? Well, it's simple. The character Lee Everett hardly ever moved. This was especially so later on in the game. So for the most part, when players were on the stick moving Lee, they were moving the world instead, while he stayed in the same place. This just being one of the tricks that got season 1 of The Walking Dead out the door. Number 1. Enemies missed their first shot. BioShock. Now, it wouldn't be a list about video games on the internet if we didn't include something about BioShock or Spec Ops: The Line, would it? That would simply bring down the internet, our website, and this YouTube channel. So just to be safe, here's a handy trick from BioShock. Coming from the man himself, Ken Levine, he got on Twitter a few years back to drop a fun fact about BioShock. Entering Rapture for the first time, or 7th by this point, is always breathtaking. So sometimes everything going on around the player might be too much, and they could do it with a hand. So what did Ken and the developers do to help them out? Well, simple. They gave their enemies the aiming of stormtroopers. So according to Ken Levine, the first shot from an enemy in BioShock will always miss. That was the design. So to put it bluntly, players would think they kick ass straight off the bat, rather than being beaten down like in the Souls game. And that's our list. That's 10 video game tricks that will blow your mind. Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I've been Ben Roy, and you can follow me on Twitter at BenRoyTurner and follow us at WCulture Gaming. And until next time, no more games.